So we're doing a lot of talking about coaching, and you kind of hit a nail on the head before when you said that this team looks very blah. The Lions are 0-10, but they love Dan Campbell, and they play very hard for that man. So Mike Tomlin came out this week when Chase Claypool kind of came out and said the practices are too hard, they need to be more fun, and Mike Tomlin basically told him to go put that idea where the sun doesn't shine. He's going to run the team his way. And being that a lot of these coaches are very nose to the grind, very hard. Belichick is not soft.
No.
Mike Tomlin's not a soft guy either. There's a lot of, most of them are very edgy and very, I'm going to run the team my way. Joe Judge is a guy that runs that philosophy as well. Do you think that there needs to be this more Matt LaFleur, Matt Rule type of coaching where they're just very, Pete Carroll's kind of a prime example of it, let the players play and let their emotions speak for themselves? Is that where the NFL is headed?
I think it is trending that way more than we've seen in the past, where you're right, we've had a lot more of the old school. John Gruden would have fallen in line with the Bill Belichick's of the world, a just hardcore guy that is going to do things his way. But I think the biggest thing, more than anything else, is sometimes I think you see these coaches try to be something they're not. So these guys that aren't these hardcore guys, these nose to the grindstone type guys, that they try to be tough. They try to be these, and the opposite guys that is their style, that is their philosophy, but they feel like they have to lighten up to cater to today's, like, just be the type of coach that you're going to be. And I think players are going to respect it. I played high school football. I played college football, growing up playing sports. You could tell the coaches that actually believed what they were saying. You could tell the coaches that actually were confident in what they were doing. And I think that's a huge thing. I think trying to fit a certain style or a certain mold that you think you need to fit into, that's not going to last for long. So I think the biggest thing is just find a coach that truly believes in who he is and is going to mesh with the personnel that you want on your team. If you want a hard-nosed, hardcore type of team, then that's the coach you go for. If you want more a young, fun, light, high energy, then go for that. But I think you have to fully embrace whatever that is.
We are talking to Fantasy Pros, Dynasty Nerds, fantasy football writer Garret Price. Garret, let's go on to the other New York team. And a lot of Jet fans are questioning the draft, bringing in, obviously, not the draft, the whole draft, because the draft looks pretty damn good, but the quarterback. And I am a Jet fan, and a lot of people, like, after the first year, and we've talked to a lot of analysts, we have had a lot of writers come on the show and say, the Shanahan offense, it usually takes 2 years to figure out because it's a very hard offense to learn, especially as a rookie quarterback. When you look at Zach Wilson, and obviously the Jets have, right now, if the season were to end, the Jets have the 4 and the 5 pick. The Giants have 6 and the 7, which is unheard of to have a top. Both New York teams have 4 of the top 10 picks.
And I think the Eagles
in the
have
first
2
round
as well in the top 10.
The Eagles have the next 2.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really is. It's absolutely crazy. What are your thoughts to Zach Wilson? And do you really – a lot of people still think Zach Wilson's the guy. It's just going to take a little while to understand this offense. Do you think Zach Wilson is naturally the guy for this team?
So I've not been the biggest Zach Wilson guy, even coming out of college. And that's one of the things we do at Dynasty Nerds is we watch a lot of tape. Like, we get really nerdy into watching tons and tons of tape of these guys in college. I thought he was a good quarterback. I think he had a lot of traits, but he didn't do anything spectacular. There was a lot of things he did well, but there wasn't that one thing that you were like, Lamar Jackson, fantastic athlete. Josh Allen, cannon for an arm, different play, super accurate. There was nothing that he had to like really truly hang his hat on. So a lot of good traits, nothing special or elite. So going into this season, I was hoping that he would get to go to a team where they were a little more established. Maybe he got to sit and watch a little bit, because he is a little bit of a younger guy. He hasn't had a crazy amount of starts. He's not this, 4-year quarterback that started as a true freshman or anything like that. So I was hoping that he would have a little bit more time, get a little bit more of an opportunity to learn. But, kind of like Trey Lance, but that hasn't transpired for him. They threw him to the wolves right away.
Still early.
Yeah, a little early. So that being said, though, I think it is too early to say one way or another. You look at Peyton Manning's rookie season.
Right, it was
Peyton
horrible.
Manning, he set the record for interceptions in a season. Yeah. I mean, it was embarrassingly bad. So some of these guys do take some time to develop, and I actually overall really like what they're building. I think the Jets. I like Robert Saleh. I think he's a smart guy. I think he has some growing pains, some things to figure out as he goes. But you drafted Elijah Moore, who I think is an incredibly talented receiver. Thought that was a steal where they got him. Michael Carter, I think, is a good young scat back. And I think he can be an effective running back in this league. They've got some solid pieces on the offensive line. Beckham is he's awesome. So
he needs to start playing. I mean,
he's been hurt.
Yes.
He's been hurt.
And I think that's affected the growth of Zach Wilson because you don't have that left tackle that's going to protect you. Elijah Vera Tucker's turning. He looks like he's going to be a stud. He's going to be a stud. I really think at number 4 and 5, if Neal is sitting there at 4, I think you grab him up, you solidify that offensive line, you put Neal on the right side, and then you really put Zach Wilson in position to not fail and put him in position where he's going to have time to actually produce and get that ball where he needs to get it. So I think that's where they go. And then also that LSU corner who
Stingley,
who a lot of people believe might fall because of some of these teams that are sitting above them that are looking for particular positions that is not Stingley is not going to be at that position where a lot of people are going to be looking. So the Giants could have a chance to get him. I mean, the Giants don't need corners. They don't.
Please.
And right now the Jets
take a pass rusher, please.
Right, and the Jets right now with the draft that they had in the second half of the draft. They've had a very good draft when it comes to the corner position, too. So I think that Stingley could fall. I really think he could fall as good as he is. And Jeff, who's a big our big I guess you could say college football guy, he says that Stingley is the best player in this draft by far. So it's crazy.
I would tend to agree. I think he is, I don't know if I'd say by far, but I do think he is the best player in this draft. It's just you rarely see a DB go that high, but he's got the raw ability is pretty ridiculous for that kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about the rookie quarterbacks in general, both this year and also next year too, when the class is supposed to be a little more, like you were saying, questionable, where maybe there's somebody that breaks out, but it's not obvious. And this year they were supposed to be more sure things. Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be very good. Justin Fields, we were thinking that, and even Zach Wilson. A lot of people thought when they were rising were more of that kind of thing, but it hasn't happened that way this year. So from a dynasty perspective, what can you imagine this quarterback grouping to be for the young quarterbacks? Because we saw more instant impact the year before with Burrow and Herbert. So how do you judge that kind of thing when it comes to a fantasy perspective and also the upside potentially that these guys could have especially the 21 class? Because we know Mac Jones, he's great this year, but he kind of is what he is. And maybe do you see more upside with him? And then how much more upside with the other guys?
So Mac Jones is an interesting case. So sometimes we have to differentiate fantasy football and real football. Whereas even though the game of fantasy football is based off of real football, the way the scoring always works out doesn't mean that they are always good in both. Mm-hmm. So I would argue that Mac Jones right now is playing very good as an NFL quarterback. Mm-hmm. He's making a lot of good reads. He's running that offense very efficiently. He's doing what he's been asked to do, and he's leading that team to the playoffs right now. So from an NFL perspective, you're thrilled. But from a fantasy football perspective, he has no rushing upside. He's not running the football at all. When it gets to the winter months, the Patriots run the football. They're not looking to throw the football much. And even at this point, as well as he's played fantasy football-wise on a points per game basis, he's behind Sam Darnold. He's behind Jimmy Garoppolo. He's behind Tyrod Taylor. So, it's not like he's scoring a ridiculous amount of points. Right. So that's the tough part is he's a really good real-life quarterback. I just don't know how much is going to translate to fantasy.
I think
so. When it comes to the other quarterbacks, then Trevor Lawrence has been. I think it's safe to say he's been disappointing this year. I mean, we're talking about one of the most highly regarded quarterbacks coming out, maybe ever. I mean, we're talking Andrew Luck range, Peyton Manning range. We really put this kid on a pedestal, and so far he's been meh at best, and that's probably being a little bit nice, honestly. So. All of that being said, what's going on in Jacksonville right now is tough. He got paired with a coach, and I'm familiar with Urban Meyer. Obviously, he was at Ohio State for a long time. And I think Urban Meyer's a great college football coach. but he's running that team like a college football team. There is a huge difference between how a college football team is run and how an NFL football team is run. And so I just don't think he was set up to succeed. And then even then, they're drafting guys like Travis Etienne in the first round,
who's out for the season.
who's out for the season. That doesn't help at all. But, get this guy some receivers to catch the football or give him some offensive linemen to block for him. The last thing he needed was another running back because they have James Robinson, who's already a very talented player in his own right. So they just didn't do a lot of things to set him up for great success. I still think the raw ability is just far too good for this kid for him to fail.
He'll be fine.
I still would be buying.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes, let's go to Justin Fields now. I've been a big Justin Fields supporter, not just because I'm an Ohio State fan. I think the intangibles are really there. He was crazy accurate in college. Talking about one of the most accurate quarterbacks that we've seen coming out in a long time. But we also have the athletic ability. And so from a fantasy football perspective, this might end up being the opposite, where he might not do quite as well in real life, but I think he's going to do very well for fantasy football just because of how fantastic of an athlete he is. All of those rushing yards really equate to a lot of fantasy football success. So it might actually be a little bit flipped from him and Mac Jones.
Kind of like a Jalen Hurts type case.
Exactly. Yeah. Whereas Jalen Hurts, you're not like convinced that he's the guy for Philly.
I am.
Fantasy football.
I am.
You are?
10, yeah.
I am. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be a good quarterback in this league. Again, it's still early for Jalen Hurts.
Sure.
I mean, this is his second full year, and you've seen some bright things about him. He's been special in certain things. And Zach Wilson, there is something special that I saw in Zach Wilson. He was the most accurate quarterback to come out of college football. So, his accuracy is phenomenal. The problem with Zach Wilson, I think, this year is the short passes. He's got to work on when he's in the pocket, he steps in the pocket, he makes those short passes. That's something that Mike White was doing, and that's something that obviously all the other quarterbacks are, Joe Flacco, and it works in that offense. If he learns how to do that in this offense, he will be successful. I think his ability of moving inside and out of the pocket, running both ways, he can make every throw. So I agree with you. I mean, but to say that he didn't have anything that was great about him, I think his accuracy, just like you were saying, Mac Jones too, accurate quarterback coming out of college. So two very accurate quarterbacks that are very solid stepping in the pocket and making those throws.
The reason I didn't give him elite measurables for accuracy, because you're right, on paper he did fantastic with that. You saw a lot of things in college where his tight ends and his receivers helped him out a little bit, and the coverage was just so much softer compared to what you're seeing in the SEC and the Big Ten. And so I think some of those throws that ended up being completed wouldn't have been completed at a bigger school. And so that's why I didn't give him the elite marks for him. The closest thing that I would say to elite, though, was he had some of the quickest hands and one of the quickest releases out of any of the quarterbacks in last year's class. And I think that was one thing that I did think that was pretty spectacular. There was somebody, and I'm trying to remember who it was, but they compared him to Omar Vizquel, the former shortstop of the Cleveland Indians.
They did, yes.
Like, he just has really quick hands.
Yeah.
And so it's an odd cross-sport comparison. But, I do think that was something that I did think was pretty unique about Zach Wilson there. So, yeah, that's kind of my feelings on so far on this year's quarterback class.